You ever have those moments or those phases in life when you realize things have just all of a sudden gotten a lot busier than they were before? And even though I was basically at capacity before, I am now facing a situation where I am so much more over capacity and I don't know what to do about it, right? Life just shit hit the fan, life got busy, and now we are in a true busy season. Well, this just happened to me recently. And in fact, I realized it when I was trying to schedule something with somebody on the weekend, and I realized that the only day I had available for the entire rest of the year where there was not something already scheduled on a weekend was October the 5th. Now that has passed, of course, something got scheduled onto it, but it just really crystallized something for me that oh, I am in a very, very busy phase of life. That busy phase is not going to last forever, but there are a few key things going on right now in my life that are making things just like there's a lot more demands on my time than there are usually. And usually there are quite a lot of demands on my time. So I thought I'm probably not the only person who has had this experience, but I want to share with you what I'm actually doing about it because the answer is not that I can just absorb all of the new things. But first, I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what is going on. So, what does this mean when things got busy? So, normal life, right? Kids, family, business, all that stuff. But then on top of that, I've got a few key things going on. One, we've got some health issues with a member of my family. So I am traveling more often for that. Clearly, I am just in the sandwich generation. And I should probably expect this to continue to happen to some degree, right? We also are in a situation where one of my kids is now on a travel volleyball team, and we have not really been a sports family. I know lots of people have been dealing with this forever, but we have not been a sports family that like travels on the weekend for sports tournaments and things. And all of a sudden, now we are. And looking at the weekends, it's like, well, almost every other weekend, one of the parents is going to have to be traveling to not super fun locations for all day volleyball tournaments, right, with one kid. But you got to support them because it's his initiative and he wants to be doing this. So it's important, right? On top of that, one of my kids broke his arm recently. And not only that, but he broke it so badly that this has necessitated surgery and all of the follow up appointments that happen with that. And so, just stuff kept piling on. And I started to think, okay, I am in a busy season. I can't do all this stuff on top of all the stuff I'm already doing. But this new stuff that has come in, I have to do it. There's not really an option there. And so I need to figure out what has to give. And so I started to think about like, first, what is the timeline for this? I know, oh, I forgot to mention, I'm also applying for high schools for one of my kids, which is, I don't know, almost worse than applying for colleges, except for that the kid isn't really responsible for it. We as the parents are responsible for it. So that's taking up a ton of time with all the events and things. So I looked at the calendar and I was like, okay, most of this stuff will be done by the end of January, right? My kid will have applied to high school. His arm should be fixed. The other kids' volleyball season will be over. We will still probably have ongoing health issues, but that's just the way it is. But the bulk of this time stuff is going to be over at that point, right? Now, of course, new stuff may pop up, but this convergence of all of these very time heavy things is going to be done by then. So I thought, okay, for the next 4 months, what can I do? First, what are my non-negotiables, right? If I'm going to have to shift some things around, what are the things that I am unwilling to shift? So the first one is sleep. Sleep is obviously the first thing to go for most people when things get busy, but sleep is a non-negotiable for me because I know that everything else is going to be worse, including my mental health, if I'm not getting sleep. So I'm committed to still getting enough sleep. And for me, that means about 7 to 8 hours a night, non-negotiable. I also am not going to give up exercise. I know that that is, even though I don't like exercise, it's something that is really good for my mental health. So while I may reduce the number of times I'm trying to exercise per week, I am going to still exercise. And then third, I'm not willing to give up on my hobbies, right? It seems like that would be a thing that's an easy out the window, like doesn't need to be done. But for me, that's something that brings me enjoyment to my life all of the time. And so I may reduce the amount of time I spend at the pottery studio, say, but I'm not going to give that up altogether. So then I thought, okay, what can I change? What can I cut? And so there are a few things there are kind of two categories of this. One is things I can just cut for the meantime, right? For the next few months. And the other is how can we make sure that we're sharing the load equitably in our family? So the first thing I could do was I could say, okay, for one of my book clubs, and yes, I'm in three book clubs, I usually host, and that involves, not insignificant amount of work because I'm preparing and, I like to make a big feast and I'm preparing on the weekends, et cetera. So I said to my book club, I am not going to be able to host for the next few months. So we'd still love to have a book club, but hosting has got to rotate. To which everyone was like, yes, fine, of course, no problem. Right. I also really like people. I like having people over. I like hosting. I like having people over for dinner. I like having barbecues and things like that. I just decided, you know what? That's not happening for the next few months. Not that I don't love that, but it's a lot of work. And even though I enjoy it, we don't even have time for that because we have so many other things that are going on right now. So that's something that I could cut out. And then we looked at, well, what can we share the load on between myself and my partner? And if you're not partnered, maybe there are other people in your community, your friends, family members, et cetera, that you could share some of the load at. But in my situation, I'm sharing it with my partner. And so we looked at first like the weekends for this volleyball thing because that's like full on weekend travel. And we just split up all the weekends based on what worked best for our schedules. And so he's doing half of them and I'm doing half of them. Um, we also looked at the, high school applications visits, et cetera. We're both tag teaming the applications themselves, but we are also looking at, okay, who can take our kid to what thing when, because we both, neither one of us can have our entire work schedule blown out by all of this stuff. So we're really looking at how can we share the load equitably for the other things that have to be done. And I think it's so common. To take things on yourself, right? And just say, like, okay, well, I have to figure this out. I have to do it. But if there are other people in your household or your community who can help you, then try to figure out how to share the load. And so the last thing that I want to say about this is I started to think about, like, how can I be clear about when I'm getting into a situation like this in the future, right? And so for me, one of the clear clues was, oh, there's like not a single weekend day that we don't have something scheduled for the next 4 months. But I started to think about what are some other signs that I could use to identify when I'm entering a particularly busy period or busy period that will be busy for so long that it's gonna necessitate making some changes. And so I was thinking about, well, if I'm starting to feel like maybe I can't exercise as much or sleep as much or do hobbies that I enjoy as much, maybe that's a good sign to think of. Maybe doing a little calendar review once a month and just looking at the calendar and saying, like, hey, is all of our time taken? Or do we have some freedom in there? And these are things that I can think about now and for the future so that maybe I can notice the busy period earlier and do something about it earlier. I want you to think about, for you, what are those signs? What are those signs that you're entering a particularly busy season? And then I want you to, the next time that happens, identify your non-negotiables. What are the things you're unwilling to give up, even when things get busy? For your mental health or otherwise. And then, two, what are the things that you can either cut out entirely for some period of time, take a hiatus from for some period of time, or share the load with amongst other people in your family and your community. So I hope for you that you're not in this super busy season like I am. But if you are, these are some steps that you can take to help just maintain through it, because sometimes things are just gonna be busy. Now, if you like this type of content and if you want to see it in your feeds, please make sure to give it a like so I know you liked it and to subscribe. Thanks so much. See you next time.
Hello, video editor here, just to tell you, just like she said, to subscribe and also like the video, because only a small percentage of you guys are actually subscribed, and it's a big help when you guys subscribe. And also, yeah, just like the video, but do not turn the notifications on. That will just distract you, and you won't get work done. Okay, see you guys.